We are back. So, hello, everybody. I am here today with the brilliant Amber Kivett. She might have a different answer for that, but I think so because her story, the first time I heard her, was with Dr. Mike DeBoard, and I was very intrigued by what she's had to overcome and how she did it. So, I think this is not only going to be a great episode for you to appreciate somebody that's had such success, but how she's done it and then how she helps others. So, Amber, thanks so much for being here with us today.
It's truly an honor and a pleasure to serve with you today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So I'm located in Indiana, Hoosier heartland, if you will, where you can be at any one crossroad in the middle of Indianapolis, and anywhere in the United States you want to go, you can be there just in the center of the being. So the airplane doesn't land on the runway in Indianapolis International Airport. It lands right next to my business on our family farm. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's I was just dropping somebody off, my nephew at the airport not too long ago, so I had to go around that circle loop, come back and find my way back onto 74 West,
We
Northwest.
got we got 74, we got 70, we've got 65, we got 69, we got a little bit of everything.
That's crazy. And then that interchange, all that
465, we got
renovating,
all those numbers. Yeah.
that was a mess. I've missed that turn several times to go south towards Bloomington. So, part of the amazing piece that I found so intriguing with your story, loved right away, and I reached out to Dr. Mike and like, can I meet Amber and would she be willing to interview? And yes, it took us a little bit to get hooked up, but things work out. So I am so grateful you're here to share your story. Tell us a little bit about your background, what you do, with your clients, how you got to that point, and then we can talk more about your story and then how you broke through certain things.
Sure. So I will go back to the early years of 2000. So I'm 46 years old now. Just turned 46 in April. And 2000, I was at Purdue University from 96 to 02 as a chemistry major for a couple of years. Couldn't get past chemistry. So, well, I got past chemistry, couldn't get past calculus. So I got into sports medicine, which was referred to as athletic training back then. I had never seen an athletic trainer. So I really thought that athletic training was strength coaching and wanted to be a strength coach. And so when I got into the athletic training room and realized that I was in a totally different world in one of the top programs in the nation at Purdue, I fell in love with it. And so I double majored in exercise science kinesiology and athletic training sports medicine. So got out and started practicing immediately, got to travel with some of the best athletes of the world. Drew Brees, one of them, Purdue track and field, Purdue swimming and diving, women's soccer, worked with 4,000 hours in three years, no summers, with some of our clinical applications. If we weren't in class, we had to be in the training room, serving, learning, working, kind of grunt labor, if you will. Kind of illegal nowadays, but we got to learn through the act of doing. But loved every single moment that I got to explore in my undergraduate years at Purdue. And most athletic trainers, when they get certified and licensed, go back and either get their PA or they go to PT school or they get a master's in athletic training. And that was the plan. But I was in a long-term relationship for 5 years and they moved home, got married 2 years later. And 9 months after that, got involved in a bad motor vehicle accident after being the medical coordinator for the World Swimming Championships for the Olympic trials of 2005. 4 weeks later, after all the stress, I was at the pool that week. They gave me about 4 months to plan for that event. It takes like a year. But because I had worked with Purdue, swimming and diving and had hosted a Big Ten event, knew what was at stake and how to kind of make things come together. But we had all the Olympic medalists, Michael Phelps, and all of their therapists there. And just, it was a tremendous amount of pressure. And I was only a few years out of my education with a bachelor's degree. Very stressed out and, newlywed, got into a motor vehicle accident. I didn't see it coming, driving a Yukon Denali and got sandwiched between a 90s Suburban and a brand new conversion van. Woman saw the light, but didn't see it change and lost track of her cat in the vehicle and hit me. And I didn't see it coming. It was a perfectly beautiful day. And I suffered 8 spinal injuries, a head injury, the immediate onset of fibromyalgia, severe spinal strain, no short-term memory. And when I called my husband to tell him I'd been in an accident, after he clarified to make sure that I was okay, he asked what the response of the vehicle was. And my natural thought was, oh, I don't even know what's wrong with the vehicle. So I got out and walked around, and that's when I knew I had spinal injuries. And because you typically don't move, but a sheriff actually witnessed the whole accident and asked me if I was okay. And I felt okay. I was still wearing a sports medicine uniform from covering a baseball tournament that Saturday, May 21st of 2005, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll never forget it. And it took me 2 years to learn how to move functionally again. I learned to walk with a normal gait pattern on an underwater treadmill at the time that Oxycontin was surging, and they were testing Lyrica, testing what is now gabapentin, but at the time I was a clinical trial for Neurontin, because they were using a lot of new drugs off label, but no real pathology or understanding as to how they worked.
Mm.
And so I was taking 23 pills a day, and very toxic if you're not familiar with what pharmaceuticals do to the fascia and to the human body. And back then they told us not to move a whole lot. You just need rest. And I'm going to call myself a freak of nature to a lot of doctors at the age of 27, because fibromyalgia in the early 2000s was a garbage can diagnosis with, you have this list of symptoms, you have depression, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, you've got chronic pain all over, and you got, I was narcoleptic. There's a lot of things. If you fall into these criteria, and if we push and poke on your body in these specific spots, and you have pain in these specific spots, you have fibromyalgia, but there's no objective testing to truly diagnose it. And at that point, they qualified that as an autoimmune disease, but it's not technically any longer an autoimmune disease. Or so they don't recognize this one. So when I was going through being a guinea pig for all these 7 doctors and these pharmaceutical companies, I ended up going through hormonal menopause because of my head injury. They didn't diagnose me with fibromyalgia for 6 months post-injury. They didn't diagnose me with narcolepsy or hormonal menopause until almost 6 months to 9 months later. And it wasn't until I went to see a weight loss specialist, because I had gained about 60 pounds of medicinal weight gain, that I just said, I just want to lose weight. And all these doctors are giving me pills that are making me gain weight, and they're telling me not to move. And I feel miserable, and I don't even know who I am. But I hallucinated one day at home because they were over medicating me. They didn't have a controlled substance log back then. So they were just handing me 300 Percocet at a time in a bottle. And you need to take 8 to 10 of these. And then if you still have pain, then you need to take 4 to 6 tramadol overlapping that. And I was taking Cymbalta, because that was a test drug for depression for people who are in pain, all while being a newlywed. So, and having no identity. I lost my identity. You don't realize, I tell people all the time, if who we are is based off of what we have, so we have all of our degrees, our certifications, our friends, where we live, the car we drive, our career, if who we are is what we have, and we based our identity off of that, when you lose it all, what's left? And I really was nobody. And I hallucinated one day because they were over medicating me, and I had no short-term memory. It took 3 neurologists to figure out that I actually had a head injury that was undiagnosed, which had led to narcolepsy, among some other things. And I had gone through hormonal menopause. So I had the estrogen levels of a 90-year-old woman when I got tested for the sleep study to figure out why my body was not healing. And so that was my first bout with a specialist in neurology and anti-aging hormone health, to understanding how not only physical stress, but emotional stress, loss of identity, truly affects how your brain releases hormones, and how your body in the autonomic nervous system can be in a state of fight or flight or restoration, but not both. Can't be in both at the same time. You're either in one or the other. Nobody talked about the psoas back then, even though I was testing, I was certified licensed. I never heard the name psoas in my undergraduate years, because if you had back pain, you just stretched more. And we did electrical stim and ice, or ibuprofen, or we pushed, the Vioxx, right? Which is now forbidden. So there's just a lot of things that we did differently back then, non-holistic, very Western medicine based. I had fortunately worked for a spine surgeon who I used to do research for him on MRIs for professional basketball players. And I waited for several weeks to get an appointment with him to see what I was up against with these 8 spinal injuries. I had 5 cervical disc bulges. I had 3 lumbar disc bulges with 1 full herniation on a moderate level, a severe spinal strain, and all the doctors told me just to rest and go to my physical therapy appointments. But what we know about fascia, and from what I have learned from learning how to hack into the system, is the worst thing you can do is rest when you're doing it all the time. The best thing our body needs is motion. Movement is medicine, motion is lotion. And so after I hallucinated and the doctors were telling me this is as good as life gets for you after having 3 spinal epidural procedures, and I'm still miserable as can be and 200 pounds, and I fired everybody and I started over. And I found an Asian doctor. I had the head injury with the headaches. So the headache is what was more debilitating, the actual spine pain and the nerve pain, believe it or not. Because if you can't see light, if you can't watch TV, listen to music, if you can't function outside with stimuli because your head is about to explode, CTE is it is a true real thing. They were starting to study that, and I became enrolled in a clinical study with the University of California with their brain department with professional athletes because I was a competitive athlete in a motor vehicle accident at that time. So they used those criteria to roll me into that study. And so they were doing hormonal testing on me every single month to see where my body was adjusting because human growth hormone became available back then, but you had to have a doctor who really understood how to dose it because it's an injectable. So, and insurance doesn't pay for that stuff. And most doctors are scared to death of it because they don't understand it, but they're not going to recommend it. They're going to stick to mainstream pharmaceuticals. So to keep this long story shorter, I fired everybody. I hired a chiropractor. I never had a chiropractic adjustment in my life. I hired a massage therapist to work on me 2 hours a week. I'd never been to massage therapy school, but because I worked with swimming and diving at Purdue and worked with the World Olympic trials and worked with USA Diving, I had worked with some of the absolute best massage therapists in the world and just observed and picked their brain and was taught a little bit, but most of everything I have learned through hands-on has been through receiving through touch in my own healing journey. But I hired an Asian doctor to do acupuncture on me because I just wanted the headache to go away. And I had already done all of the preventative migraine medications. I was already on Imitrex, the emergency migraines. I was on the Topamax. I already done it all. And I'm still I was ready for the next several hours to pass so I could just take the pill to hope that I would be able to sustain cognitive conscious ability without a headache. And it wasn't working. And in fact, I was just slowly dying and at 27. So when I went and saw this Asian physician for acupuncture, he put me through some very aggressive testing with blood, urine, and saliva. You test cortisol through a 12-hour saliva test. He had tested all of my hormone levels with blood, and the urine is toxicity levels of the organs and how your body detoxes through the lymphatic system. And he did acupuncture on me that day, and he did a form of cupping that most people are not familiar with, which is wet cupping, in which they actually cut you to make you bleed to remove the stagnant flow in the space in order to get a regenerative healing process in position. And I will never forget those appointments because I cried so hard through 12 weeks of those appointments because it was so excruciating with the amount of pain I was suffering from, but also the amount of toxic blood flow and stagnation from all of these pills, 23 pills a day. And he was the first doctor that had tested me and said, we have to get you off these drugs as fast as possible, as safe as possible, because your organs are 1 month away from dialysis and these doctors are killing you and they don't care. And I said, okay, well, whatever we got to do, you're in charge. So he started me on an herbal detox routine to help boost my organ function and slowly pulled me off of the drugs that he really didn't see relevant based off of my meridian equilibriums and what, the signs were telling him, the pulses were telling him. And he worked with me very closely with the wet cupping. I will never forget the first time he did wet cupping on me, that my blood was chocolate brown. That's how bad it was. Chocolate brown. And he cupped me from behind my ears all the way down to my ankles because I had multiple areas of trauma. And so I will remember, I felt like I was burning alive. I truly felt like my body was burning alive and just cried my eyes out for 10 to 20 minutes to get through those treatments. But the first time I saw him, I went without a headache for 4 days because the acupuncture worked. And so I saw him for acupuncture once a week, and I saw him for the cupping every 2 weeks because your body has to heal for that, in order to be able to go back in and break it down again. And so I did 12 weeks of those treatments. And the day that I could start discontinuing taking the Percocet and some of the other harder drugs that the anti-seizure drugs that work with pain, my blood turned bright red. And that's when we slowly tapered off of all of the other hardcore narcotics and never developed a drug dependency ever, didn't really hunger for any of it. And I will never forget, he told me, he said, you don't have to diet. You just have to do what we call the industrialized diet, which means that you live as if you were in the industrialized revolution. You eat a really big breakfast in the morning, and then you take some bread and some potatoes from dinner the night before and you stick it in your pocket and you nibble on that through lunch. And then you eat something light for dinner, and then you do it all over again, but you hydrate. But that's what the farmers and the workers used to do because you didn't go back and forth, and you didn't have a lot of food. So he said, all I want you to do is eat a good breakfast, and whatever you eat, you just eat half of everything you would normally eat and you will lose weight. And he said, and you have to move. And I said, but all these doctors are telling you not to move. He said, no, you need to move. So I started driving to the local fitness center, and I took the elevator to the second floor because I could not walk up and down stairs yet without excruciating pain. And I got on a recumbent Cybex bicycle and couldn't even pedal hard enough to turn the power on the computer on. That's how I started. And I did that every day, 5 days a week, until I was able to walk up and down a flight of stairs without a pain pill. And it took me about a year. And as soon as I figured out that I was qualified to rehabilitate myself, but I was told not to. So when I started learning how to move different, and that everything they had told me not to do was exactly the opposite of what I should have been doing, I started moving as much as possible and healed. And it took me 2 years to walk up and down a flight of stairs without a pill. It was the Biltmore Estate that happened because I happened to go there on a very spontaneous trip. And I wanted to, it was a bucket list, adventure. And I had my pills with me, thought I was supposed to be taking them on some level. And I got to the Biltmore and they wouldn't allow me to see the pool if I was on the handicap tour. So I said, I'm not doing that tour. I'm going to do the regular tour where I can see the pool. And so one step at a time, I figured out how to walk up and down those flights of stairs. And something magical happened in that day, in that I didn't have pain. And I thought I needed to take the pills in order to not have pain. And I did it without the pills because I didn't have them with me. So I learned that the doctors were telling me to go looking for the pain with the pills. And that was the first day that I started fighting back my life as in a holistic way as possible. My chiropractor was the first one to teach me what the psoas was by doing some manual therapy just beyond manipulation. Learned body imbalance. So I learned about postural control there. And my massage therapist taught me how to learn how to receive, how to communicate effectively, and where the fine line of pain really should be versus what you're being told that you have to put up with. So when the licensure laws changed for athletic trainers to practice manual therapy, I went and got certified in everything that healed me and immersed my passion into learning as much as I could about it. And I've been doing it ever since in private practice in my own facility. But I have my own cupping brand now. I invent my own cups and have those manufactured. And I'm certified in multiple levels of cupping. And the best part about all of this is here just within the last year, I've had some other recent health challenges that are autoimmune related with my oral health. And I ended up going back to see that Asian doctor for the first time since 2007. And now I'm certified with him in his cupping. I took a certification class with him just last month, and is an 18-hour course over 2 days on fire cupping and wet cupping. And I'm now certified under him. And he signs my my standing orders to practice fire cupping and wet cupping because no other regular doctor will do it. And my state licensure allows me to do it. So I got to reunite with him, and he's one of my superheroes. He saved my life. So I live every hour, I live one day at a time, an hour at a time. And I serve every single day with the ability to give back to people who are in pain in a way that I desperately crave somebody like me. And there wasn't anybody like me back then. So I do everything full circle, mind, body, spirit. but I specialize in pain management, not like a process, but instant pain relief. I provide instant pain relief through the mental process, the physical process, the body work, and hacking into the nervous system. That's a long story short. That's a lot of talking for you.
That's fine. That's great. There's so many questions that came up in there. One of my first questions is, I'm very familiar with cupping. Love the work. The fascial movement cupping too, versus just
Yep,
static, is also extremely uncomfortable, but very
sure.
effective. So with is that the fire cupping? Wet cupping is the actual cut, the cut.
Yeah.
So is that scarring in any way?
It does not. No, it actually does the opposite. So wet cupping, you can do wet cupping without fire. You can use the traditional poly plastic cups that you can pump and suction out. But the way that that works, if you use those plastic cups with the pump, you have to throw them away as soon as you use them because you cannot disinfect them from the blood because it goes through the valve. So there's no way to disinfect, but fortunately for us professionals, you can spend as cheap as $1 a cup for a plastic cup. And wet cupping, you're not cutting multiple areas. You're going to where they have the greatest amount of pain, and you're making about 30 cuts with a what would be almost the size of a diabetic lancet. It's a special. They actually make a special tool in the Asian medicine world. It looks like a pin, and you just tap it, and it's just mild cuts that you can barely feel, to create a removal process in which the blood can alleviate that space. And most people who have a lot of stagnant energy in that one space have a lot of fascial adhesions in that space too.
Hmm.
So, and what I have learned with fascia in my own journey, as well as witnessing it with thousands of treatments on other people, is, where the body is stagnant and where the fascia is no longer like jello, it becomes more like sticky honey or peanut butter, and it eventually becomes glued. And the blood travels through fascia, but where it's glued, it can't travel through, so it's stuck.
Right.
So if you are cutting from the outside, in order to provide an exit plan,
Hmm.
when you create the suction, which is negative pressure, it feels like super claustrophobia. So if you don't like being compressed, that's actually what it feels like, but it's the exact opposite. It's actually opening up the space. But fascia is emotionally driven and hypersensitive with major nerve endings, 10 times that greater than our traditional nervous system. So when we are stimulating through decompression, the fascia carries emotion and trauma, and our body is very resistant to change. So the emotion and the neurological system becomes more enhanced and stimulated, and so we naturally become guarded unless we understand what's actually happening to us. And it creates that separation, which allows the blood to then be placed into the cup through the suction, but it also allows blood flow to move into the space because we now have space and we're creating extra space. We're taking pressure off the valves. So there's a tremendous amount of healing that happens through that, not only from a physical standpoint with the blood and stagnation, but also from the emotion, because most people will not talk about what they are silently suffering from. And it allows that pressure to offload, even if you don't talk about it. It's the offloading process.
Well, and
It allows.
that would tie into that. I love what you just said. I never even looked at it that way. So this is what I love about these conversations is you're opening a perspective up for me with all my history in what I do, but I'm I'm more a student of the game today than I was early because I realize what we don't know and how much that just opens more.
Mhm.
That fascial, like you said, it's more than just a physical allowing of space to open up to allow new energy to come in, but that emotional release that fascia is trying to hang on to, even unbeknownst. It's just like we stagnate our energy around this emotion when we really have permission to let it go. And this is the physical letting go, and then there's the emotional let go, right?
Right.
It's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah. So I learned a lot of that because the Western world here in the United States, there's not a lot of pharmaceutical companies don't want you to know about it because pharmaceuticals are one of the biggest toxic problems behind our fascial connective tissue, as well as our hormonal nervous system. Our hormonal system is one, but our nervous system a whole nother animal. Pharmaceuticals is one of the biggest problems that causes bigger problems with that. So doctors get your MDs get paid to support their hospital or their commitments and the pharmaceuticals. So they don't want you to know that something so simple as being able to hack into your own system at home is more beneficial in a lot of ways. You have way more control over the outcome of your health and quarterbacking your own health than what most people realize. So I learned that through a German physician. I did a mentorship with him back in the spring and got access to his science and his intellectual property. I paid to learn that. And it was profound. What I have been feeling from a gut intuition, what I have witnessed, but also what I've emotionally felt as a survivor in all the trauma I've been through. I knew I was seeing and experiencing something, but I could not clinically prove it. And in our world of medicine, we have to be evidence-based here in the States. And a lot of insurance won't pay for anything, and I don't file insurance, so it doesn't matter. But everybody wants to know the clinical trials or the clinical studies behind it, because that's what they're told they have to do. And if you can't get access to that information, which is very skewed by pharmaceuticals, hospitals, prosthetic companies, surgery, all that stuff, the food companies, it is all very skewed to benefit their narrative and their agenda, that most people don't understand that it's out there, but you just don't know where to find it. So when I learned from him, it was like I actually walked into a treatment room after listening to the Zoom call with him and started crying with one of my clients who I've been working with for a year, who is paralyzed. And I told him, I said, I know why I can get your foot to move right now. I know why we can see things moving in your body, but your brain is not in control over it. Like now I understand it. And I knew it all along, but I couldn't prove it. Now I have the clinical data to prove it. So that was profound. And so there's so much information out there that there is studies, the information is out there. We just don't know about it because there's so many barriers that keep it from being exposed. Right. So, but I tell people all the time, if there's something you feel, if there's something you see, I like to say that God puts those whispers in our mind for a reason, and it's not something to be ignored. Write it down, go back and visit it, and don't think that you're crazy, even though people might call you crazy for thinking some of the things you do. You're not crazy, you're just the first. And when you're the first, then everybody wants to know how you figured it out after they've made fun of you. That's been my life like the last 10 years. So I look forward to it.
Right. Now you're good at it. You're getting really good at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So would that be German New Medicine you were studying?
A lot of what the Europeans are doing is so far ahead of us in the holistic world and what really works, because if you think about modern medicine in the Western world as we know it, it's all from Hippocrates, who is known as the godfather of medicine, of modern medicine. They still teach a lot of his findings in his textbooks in med school, but so much of what has happened here started in ancient Roman Empire in Greece and Egypt before the Roman Empire collapsed. The city of Alexandria in Egypt was actually created as a learning mecca for Hippocrates to share cupping and acupuncture and his findings of the 4 elements of the human body before the Roman Empire collapsed. All the stuff was lost. And then the traditional Chinese medicine world was discovered, and it's a spinoff of what Hippocrates started, but it's all based off the organs and the meridians. That's the biggest difference, but it's very similar. So yeah, there's a lot of the Europeans and the Asians are so far ahead, and what is banned substances in those countries as to what we use here in the States and what the FDA prevents us from being able to do, they're running with high levels in other countries, even Canada, because they're government-based insurance providers, and their people make less money because they pay taxes into their government, but the government pays for their medical care, which costs them a lot of money if they're using procedures and pharmaceuticals. So they rely more on the holistic world. They rely more on their culture. So that's your sauna. That's your, everybody in Finland has a sauna, by the way. In Turkey, it's the Turkish baths, where they do contrast. They do cold therapy, hot therapy, as well as meditation in these shrines, but they're doing it nude. In France, it's soaking with blue-green algae and hydro. So this stuff has been around since BC, We just can't get out of our own way because of greed, is what I like to say. So yeah, I learned from some of the, and I was one of the few who was part of this mentorship that's from the United States. So it was really cool listening to other therapists, other doctors from other countries, all the way over to Africa, and hearing what they're doing and listening to some of their questions, because I was one of the few in the group who is got multidisciplinary background in human performance, massage body work, sports medicine, and mental. Like, I understand so much full circle because I had to survive it. But most of them are just, somebody's a doctor, somebody is a physical therapist, somebody is a personal trainer, somebody is a mental coach or a massage therapist. So they don't understand all of it together, but I'm full circle. So it was really neat to be able to learn from their perspective as to how they apply it, and take little bits and pieces of their little niches and kind of blend it in and sprinkle it into my own based on what my clients need, because all my clients get their own exclusive proprietary recipe. I don't do the same thing on everybody. And it changes person to person, visit to visit, because our body is always reshaping, reinventing based on how we move and what we put in it. So it changes every day. So people leave our clinic, they leave your clinic a different person than what they were when they walked into your clinic, and they'll never be that same person ever again. They get to continue to evolve, and we get to help them do that.
Well, and that's very refreshing. You and I are like long lost friends, just being reunited because it's music to my ears. I'm just listening, enjoying someone else talking about the holistic. That, you know, this channel was created because I got tired of saying the same thing over and over to my patients, and I wanted to share information with them in a way. My previous podcast was the evolution of it, but bottom line was, I simply wanted to stop having to repeat myself every day and give them information that they could go listen to and either share. But it was for my local community and my own patient base to start. The big thing I love hearing you talk about is how you took your own challenge that served up as, you know, you got some lemons and you created this lemonade no matter how long it took you. And that natural curiosity to solve a problem allowed you to be the sponge you are, to then be able to transfer this. So that gift, it's a gift. I think it's a gift that you went through to then help more people solve their problems, knowing what you know. And they obviously trust you because you're great at what you do. You have a great energy about you. It's coming from the right place, which is serving mankind in the way. And also your magic phrase of, as I look back on the wall, your magic phrase is, they're different every day, which means you can't just can this program. You can have a system, which you do, your system, and yet there's tweaks in that system because it's how they present in the context of that patient's history and daily presentation. I mean, we got new stress coming in, we got our current stress, we got our old stress, and the body's all dealing with that all at the same time, right? Brilliant.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So magic, I don't know if you got a chance to learn that about me before we met today, but magic became an acronym because I had so many naysayers or people who were very envious of my success, who would say, "Oh, she's the witch doctor," or "Oh, she's a sorcerer. She's trying to, she's voodoo." Like, and that's not living in spirit with using God's gifts. That's very paganistic, and I didn't want that reputation spoken about me. So people started calling me magic hands because of how I would touch them and heal them, or transform them. I could feel where their pain was, just from understanding some different things. So some people called me the magic lady for a long time. I didn't delegate myself that name. It just picked up over time, and that started over 10 years ago. So Magic then actually co-wrote a book not too long ago, and I had to change the trajectory of what magic meant because I didn't want that reputation. So I turned it into an acronym and added my last name, K, or my trademark Go Motion guy, to it. So it's MAGIK instead of MAGIC for those who don't get to see your screen. But magic is an acronym, and the words for magic is motivation, acceptance, greatness and gifts, inspiration, and kindness. And so it all flows together in that I motivate others to being a better version of themselves possible. And we do that by accepting them right where they're at, because most people come in because I specialize in pain, and I charge a premium. I don't file insurance. People usually wait until they're at the end of the road where they're desperate to call me because they don't want to pay out of pocket until they have to. And they want instant relief. They want it now. They've already done all the other stuff. They want it now. So they always come in at rock bottom in a lot of ways, or holding on to a lot of stuff that they just have no idea. They have no hope. I am their last hope. So we accept them right where they're at, and we explain to them it's okay to be where you're at, but we're not going to stay here. We recognize that they all have greatness and they all have their own gifts within them that they've lost hope in. And we allow that to be exposed because God gives us that. And we do that by just inspiring them to want more for themselves by just being kind because they deserve that. And when we live in spirit and we are able to share our God-given gifts through servant leadership, then we have the ability to change the world for something bigger than ourselves. And I like to say that adversity happens to us because we're not living in spirit. We make it about our own self-gain, or we're on our own roadmap instead of what God's roadmap is for us. And that's when we usually get a curveball thrown out of us at adversity. And I call adversity just God's idea of resistance training. We go to the gym to do resistance training. We do B3 BFR bands for resistance training because we want to get stronger. We want to grow our muscles. We want to grow ourselves. We want to get better. But we would never sign up for the adversity that hits us because we don't think we have the ability to do it, and it's an inconvenience. But when God throws us into it, we have no choice but to figure it out. We have no choice. So I call adversity just God's idea of resistance training for us when we get off track.
That's great. It's a great slogan. It's a great perspective. It's fresh to keep it real as to why it happens. I mean, I can easily, you don't know this necessarily about what I've been through there, and everyone has their story. Part of it is I don't need to bring it up, but the gift that I had when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer was the gift. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know why, but because I'm a spiritual being and I have a relationship with God, and I know there's no creation or creationary accidents. I just knew it was a gift, and therefore I was like kind of excited and waiting to see how it was a gift. As the same time, I was like freaked out because this wasn't the way I was going to go. And that led to a whole change in my practice too, and focus, and greater degrees of authenticity, and just doing right by who I am and why I'm on this planet yet at this time. As you already alluded to some philosophical belief sets that fall around political sides, but this is not political. But because we are for mankind, that's our direction, right?
Yeah, I like to say that ego is etching God out. When we etch God out of our life and make it more about our self-gain is when things happen. I just filed for divorce after 27 years with the same person about 2 months ago. And it was a tough decision, but a necessary decision. And I think one of the greatest quotes when I started to lean into my inner circle for help, because I was at another rock bottom moment trying to make that decision. One of the greatest quotes that has changed my life in the last 2 months is this: a coincidence is a miracle in which God chooses to remain anonymous. And I'll repeat that again. A coincidence is a miracle in which God chooses to remain anonymous. And so when I'm going through moments of adversity and I'm thrown into the resistance training, I'll just say, okay, God, whatever I'm supposed to learn from this situation, my heart is open. I'm surrendering for you to show me whatever I'm supposed to learn, because I know that you're going to ask me to help somebody at a later time. And in order to be qualified to help them, I have to be the one writing the map instead of the one reading the map, because I don't want to be on a ship in a storm with somebody who has just read the map but has not navigated yet. I want to be in the storm with somebody who has actually written the map and knows how to tweak it. So whatever I'm supposed to learn from this situation, I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to ask why. We're going to embrace it, and we're going to roll forward and just serve every single day in gratitude with what's going right in our life, because we have already survived our worst day, or we would not be here talking.
Beautiful. You had mentioned BFR. We have some first-time listeners who don't know BFR. Maybe they're going to find this. They're going to be your people, someone else's people. Bottom line is, tell me about BFR, why you got into it, and what it meant. You got some guns there, girl. I see some defined muscles. And the first video I saw with you, Dr. Mike, you were in this transition point of change. Obviously, we all are. And you were metamorphosizing your body. And you were already onto certain things that were like breakthrough, but you look even more amazing now. So tell us about that, how and why you incorporate it and how you incorporate it.
Well, I'll just tell you, I met Dr. Mike in 2020. I was asked to present at a university in Tulsa, Oklahoma, about my business model with private practice as an athletic trainer. And I was there with the head athletic trainer from the Kansas City Chiefs, Rick Burkholder, after they just won the Super Bowl. And he was there, and Dr. Mike DeBoard, the creator founder of B3BFR resistance bands, was there. And they were there because they had used, the Chiefs use the B3, specifically the B3 system, in rehabilitating their athletes to getting them back as fast as possible without destruction on the joints, because those guys are already destroying their joints. Every time a football player makes impact with another football player, it is a 30+ mile per hour collision. Every single hit is what the concussion helmets teach us. So they're using the B3 systems to help hack into the nervous system and to hack into the hormonal system to maximize the release of human growth hormone and testosterone, and using heightened levels of nitric oxide for our bodies to restore and to, I'm going to say, age backwards as the years roll forward. And so I was there. We were all three in the same place at the same time. My story was I'd had a total hysterectomy in 2018, and I am a survivor of sexual trauma. So me parting ways with my body and letting go of the dark past at the expense of giving up the opportunity for motherhood again was a very emotional, traumatic situation for me to have to let go of. And my hormones, when I had that surgery, were just everywhere. And I'm just going to tell you, most gynecologists, they don't want to talk about hormone replacement. They don't want to talk about, what you can do to hack into the system for anti-aging or to perform at optimal levels. Do you want to be a Camaro or do you want to be a Ferrari, is what I like to say. And I knew I was struggling with some things. I was over 200 pounds, just not happy, didn't feel good, not confident, and still dealing emotionally with some of the past. And I was in that room. I was already trying to research how I already understood testosterone. I already understood growth hormone because of my recovery, my accident from 2005. And so Dr. Mike got up and presented. It was less than 15 minutes of a presentation, was all the time they gave him as a major sponsor. And he said two things. He said, human growth hormone release and testosterone, 15 minutes of exercise, and you're done. And that he captured my attention with that right there, because I was already trying to exercise, but I was in intense pain trying to do it because my body was very angry. My vagus nerve was angry. That's how I learned about the vagus nerve and how polyvagal nerve theory works. Knew nothing about that before my hysterectomy. That was the turning point of that situation. Another form to serve, right, through my own adversity. And so when they went to break away, I walked up to him and I said, okay, you caught my attention. Like, tell me how they work. And I already knew that Michael Phelps and his massage therapist were featuring using those because I had tried them at a massage therapy convention in years prior, but I didn't like them because they didn't feel good and they were big and bulky and a lot of cables and it just sucked.
So you're talking about the therapy version of that, the third party Doppler.
Yep. So it was just a lot of information, overwhelming, super, super expensive. Like nobody wants to pay over $1,000 for technology to use at home. Most people don't want to pay over $500 to do technology over home. So when I had him, he took 5 minutes to demo on me, and it took 5 minutes for me to experience the burn. I thought, okay, with resistance band in the hallway during a potty break. And I thought, okay, I'm in, like, let's do it. And he was like, okay, well, do you want to do this or do you want to start selling them? And I'm like, I will go ahead and buy in right now, but I don't want to sell them yet. I just want to try them first. And so I took them home and I tried them honestly for 2 weeks. And what you have to remember, Dr. Wade, is it takes 15 days to create a habit. It takes 30 days for it to become automatic. And we do not like change. We're very stubborn individuals, all of us, because we're mammals, right? We're human. So he had called to check on me and I'm like, he's like, how's the bands going? I'm like, I'm not doing them like I'm supposed to be doing them. And so he said, why don't you keep doing them, but tell me how your workouts are. And I wasn't listening to his workouts. I had actually called I called Rick Burkholder and said, okay, Rick, how are you using them with the Chiefs? Like, what's your routine? Because I didn't understand the science. I just learned it. And so I just went to the gym and did my own thing, but I was working too hard. And when you have been in the fitness world since you were in your, I was 18 when I got involved, you know, and I'm in my 40s when I had my hysterectomy. When you have been an elite endurance athlete most of your adult years, it is really hard to not do cardio when the doctor tells you you can only do 15 or 20 minutes of cardio. And we have been brainwashed that weight loss happens by calories out, calories in, and you have to have a calorie deficit. So people are you cannot outtrain a bad diet. You can eat 1,500 calories of pure junk. I have tried it all. I'm telling you, I've tried it all. I didn't want to diet. I ate 3,000 calories. So therefore I've got to exercise 3,000 calories. And I did it. But I had no idea that I was aging really bad and causing more endometriosis and causing more hormonal strain because I didn't understand how the vagus nerve works with the autonomic nervous system until I was being educated with Dr. Mike and also learning about that through the Eastern methodologies with acupuncture. That's how I learned about the vagus nerve and the autonomic nervous system, was being able to provide needleless acupuncture, because that's what you're trying to hack into. With the B3-BFR bands, you can create a metabolic catastrophe by putting on what most people would consider a tourniquet, which has been in bodybuilding for years, by the way, using a strap or a belt. They've known it for years, and bodybuilders do not do cardio at all. They walk on a treadmill at 3 miles an hour, as high as incline as they can, to get cardio in order to get the fat release. Because if you get your heart rate too high over 20 minutes, all your inflammatory hormones go up and you cancel out the benefits. So the testosterone growth hormone never actually release. They cancel each other out. Cortisol takes over, which makes us very sick. That's the difference in having autoimmune disease and not, is cortisol levels. So I learned from him. It wasn't until the pandemic hit. And what's crazy about God's timing in all of this, there's never mistaken God's timing. I met with Dr. Mike DeBoard in February of 2020, and the pandemic hit in April. And I had done the workouts bad. I had done the workouts wrong by myself for a month and just didn't see results. I didn't care because I'm a go-getter. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to double down. I'm going to 10X it, right? Because I'm stubborn.
And you're a fitness expert.
I'm a fitness expert, right? And I have been my entire life, my entire adult career. So I'm all in, like, we're going to get ripped. It wasn't happening. I got worse. So when the pandemic hit, what happens? Everybody shuts down and my clients don't have a lifeline. So I start offering workouts for free on Facebook Live. And I have to multitask because we're now in crisis mode. And I have to take care of teaching my daughter, who no longer goes to school. So now I'm her teacher and her mother. I am now a professional trying to figure out how on earth I'm going to make money to stay alive. I'm a farmer's wife, so we're doing all of that. And I am me. So how am I going to squeeze all this in? So I was doing my live workouts on Facebook Live. And one day I just put the bands on and just thought, I'm going to look like an idiot. I've never been a presenter before this. And so I'm doing these live workouts, and he watched one of them. Dr. Mike watched one of them, and he called me. He said, Amber, you're working too hard. And I said, but Dr. Mike, like, I have to do a 45-minute workout or I just don't feel right. And he was like, Amber, you need to do no more than 15 minutes of cardio. He said, do the cardio at the beginning, put the bands on, do cardio at the beginning. That's all good. He said, but stop cardio and start doing core. Like, just do some lifts or get the bands off. And then when you're off live, then put the bands on and run up and down your stairs. Like, you don't have to curl weights. You can walk up and down your stairs. You can go for a walk on an incline on a hill outside. You can go on a hike. You don't have to wear the bands in a gym. I thought, lightning bulb went off. So I started doing that. And I started offering only 30-minute workouts with the first 10 minutes being cardio heavy, because we got the bands on. And let me tell you, when you got the blood flow restriction bands on doing cardio 10 minutes, the heart rate hits 85% max threshold within 5 minutes. It does not take 20 minutes to get there. So you get there and then, okay, now we got the heart rate elevated. Now we've got to sustain without being too high. So we also have to go on this roller coaster ride, because we're going to exhaust more fuel in the body by not running on cruise control, but taking as many turns in the countryside as we can to get to the end result. That's what uses more fuel. And so we need to do that for fat metabolism. So I got the cardio up. killed the cardio and started doing the resistance. So, and I did that through a variety of different ways, using what I call the Amber Squishy Ball, which is just a Pilates bar ball on Amazon, using 3-pound to 5-pound dumbbells, using resistance bands, using body weight, using whole body vibration, which is a whole nother thing I tripped over and kind of became my own creation. And so I started melting on camera and didn't realize that I was melting on camera, like over the period of weeks, until people started saying, you're looking like you lost some weight. But let me tell you a secret about spandex. It's very forgiving, and it's also very accommodating. So when you wear spandex every day, if you don't put on the jeans or the regular denim shorts, which nobody was because nobody's going anywhere, we're isolated. So I wore spandex every day. Wasn't looking at myself in the mirror because I don't care. Like, I didn't like myself on camera. I was just trying to make a difference in one person because I didn't like what I saw, but I liked knowing that I was helping others. And in that process, lost 50 pounds with BFR and whole body vibration combined, tripped over the science and didn't even realize that I was hacking into my system with 2 totally different types of technology, and doing it because I was trying to save time, multitasking. So I got away from using the bands for about the last year and a half because my life has been, we're going to call it organized chaos. I did 1,500 appointments with clients last year by myself. And as a professional in what you do, 1,500 points or 1,500 appointments that are either an hour long or longer in 365 days is an insane amount of hours. And so if you have to be able to, you only have 24 hours a day, and how you manage that time is how you end up. So I gave up my workouts to be able to help other people, because I really felt like if I could give them their dreams back and give them their life by taking away their pain, I craved that so much in 2005 that I became more of an instant pain relief emergency service. So I had trouble saying no. And then when I realized what I was dealing with my marriage, just back in February, I thought, screw this, I'm going to get back to the gym. And I have my own gym, but I cannot exercise in my own gym because I can't turn off the switch of things that have to be done. I have to escape that energy and go someplace else. So I went back to where my rehab started in 2005 at the gym that I did my rehab for myself, and started wearing my bands again. And yoga is a non-negotiable twice a week for me. Hell or high water, I find a way to get to yoga. I do not wear the bands during yoga, but I do wear my B3 bands when I'm on a hill climber for 20 minutes. So I get the 20 minutes cardio in and going. Heart rate is at 80 to 90% for 10 to 15 minutes. And then I drop down to cruise control mode. And then once I get off that machine, I get into resistance mode for about 30 minutes. And I do 4 or 5 exercises that are total body. We don't compound or isolate. We do as much motion as possible with as many muscle groups as possible, because we have over 600 muscles moving in our body that are all one unit in the fascial connective tissue system. The fascia dictates the entire body, including the electrical currents in the brain. And so if I'm exercising one ginormous muscle that's made up of 600 muscles and intertwined, if I can flow through as many different movements with the blood flow restriction, hacking into the nervous system, hacking into the hormone system, I can age backwards really fast. And I will tell you, back in February, I was weighing in at about, I'm going to say about 145, which I never thought I would. I didn't see 150 pounds until last year for the first time since 2004. So when I hit the number on the scale, not trying, it was like, whoa, this is actually possible. That was like major light bulb moment for me, but I wasn't trying. And then when the week that I filed for divorce, I hit 138, and it was almost too little. Like it kind of scared me, because I haven't been 138 pounds since I was like 12 years old. I have a very athletic build. So when I started to dial back and started enhancing the diet and getting more into resistance, less cardio, more resistance, I just do the bands 3 days a week for 30 minutes to an hour. And I wear the bands the whole time for an hour at a level that I can tolerate it. 30 minutes of cardio. I know, right? At a level that I can tolerate it. And I'll tell you what, Dr. Wade, I have gotten ripped out. Like in the last 2 months, and I've never had these guns and I'm loving it. So, but I just do it 3 days a week. But the way that the blood flow restriction works, you turn the faucet on to a mainstream, and that's what we are pumping away when we're doing regular exercise. But again, when those cortisol levels, when we are in exercise mode, heart rate, respiration is up, we're in a constant state of fight or flight, sympathetic nervous system is up, cortisol is up, norepinephrine and adrenaline are skyrocketing, which means our happy hormones are dropping because that's a totally different nervous system. That's our restorative phase, which is where we get the dose of hormones. And the dose is the dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin, and the endorphins. You can't release those at the same time that you're trying to stay alive in order to escape the lion that's trying to eat you, right? So in order to tap into that, you got to be able to shut that sympathetic system down, which means the heart rate has to drop. So I've learned that through trial and error. And you only have to, Dr. Mike will say you can wear the bands every single day, and you can, but you're just trying to take that mainstream flow in the faucet down to a drip. And we all know if you got a leaky toilet or a leaky faucet, you're still going to pay a lot of money in a utility bill every month if you realize you don't have a leaking toilet or a leaking faucet. You're expecting to pay the same bill if the water is running and you're doing all the laundry. But if you don't know you have a leak, you're still paying a lot of money that you don't expect you're paying. That blood flow restriction works exactly the same way. The brain has no idea whether you are creating a metabolic catastrophe in the muscle through the starvation of oxygen, through creating a trickle. So we've gone from mainstream to just a drip. We're not starving through complete tourniquet effect with the B3 bands because they're segmented, so it's impossible to completely cut it off, which means you don't have to have an occlusion meter. You don't have to have medical supervision. They're the safest bands you can have on the market for at-home use. And they're actually the cheapest for the amount of technology that they have in them, like $400 a set with a year of free coaching. So I've learned how to do that. And I have learned we do half the effort, half the time, 2x to 10x results. And so I do that, 3 days a week. Most weeks, I don't have to do any more than that. I haven't done a single day this week since last Saturday. So I've gotten the workout hardcore, like an hour and a half once a day, and the guns are still coming out. So life is good. Like work smarter, not harder, right?
Oh my God, that's great. I love it. And breaking all the rules, just trashing them. And I say that, I say it respectfully because I also oftentimes don't think the rules apply. And my double-edged sword is I wanted to experiment with him. I had a shoulder injury. That's my first win I had to have with him. And the same thing happened. The information came in a year and a half ago. I looked right over my head, gadgety. It didn't have the bandwidth. And all of a sudden, the next time Dr. Otto brought it up to me again, February this spring, and he said, just check it out. I'm like, what? Check out what? These bands? And I'm like, oh yeah, those. He sent me the link. I looked at it. I'm like, boom, I all of a sudden got it. Growth hormone, and it's like, so all the work I've done metabolic with metabolic flexibility and all the thyroid things I'm helping my patients with by way of my own crisis that I had to go through, and medicine had zero answers and you know the whole story. I don't want to bore our people with that, but it brought me to the place where it solves a problem. The number one question I have with my patients that they have for me was, Dr. Wade, what could I do at home? You get this, Amber, what can I do at home to help these results that you're helping me with better? And one of the first things was, how do we get them moving without the cortisol? And this solved it. I'm like, oh my God, this is for the people that will never and can't and would never classify themselves as gym rats. They just wouldn't. So this solves that problem, and I can't keep the information from them. I'm like, so I'm having a blast introducing it. I love your story. It is painful to hear what you went through, but you are an incredibly strong woman, obviously a leader, and you are making an impact in the world, and I am here to support those who do that. So do you have any parting thoughts before we share your information? Like, you tell people where they can find you, what you do. Yeah, you can tidy that up. Just tell.
I'll just tell you, I have learned that all the pain, Dr. Wade, that you and I have gone through, we get to turn pain into pleasure and pain into purpose. You can't have pleasure and you can't have purpose unless you go through the pain to get there. And that's for everybody that's out there. you know, the two most important days of our life is the day that we were born, because we were put here for a reason, and the day that you figure out what your gifts are and you figure out what your opportunities are to make a difference in the world and to leave your mark. If I were to die next week, I've left my mark. I'm truly at peace within myself, but I'm living my best life right now at 46. I feel like I'm living in my 20s. I was robbed of my 20s and my 30s, and I'm having a lot of fun right now. And I feel younger than I have felt my entire adult life. And I feel like I look younger now than I have my entire adult life. And it's through biohacking. And again, most people are scared to death of the word growth hormone because it's associated with bodybuilding and steroid use. But what I want your listeners to know is human growth hormone is the fountain of youth. And what I have found, especially in men, because us women are used to fluctuating hormonally every week since we were 12. Most men don't know what hormone fluctuation is until they start to develop andropause in their 30s and 40s and then beyond. And most men are scared to death of testosterone and growth hormone because it's synthetic. The B3 stuff is the only way that you can authentically stimulate the release of those hormones into the human body through hacking, through what I call biohacking. It is the only natural, authentic way to do it without taking something orally or injecting wise. Because when our body is used to having something and the brain triggers a response, but doesn't know whether you've done a CrossFit workout or whether you're just starving oxygen of the muscle. Either way, it's the same response. But what most people need to know, especially your women, testosterone is imperative. So if you are going through hormonal shifts in your life, you foggy thinking, having erectile dysfunction, having libido problems, hair is falling out. I have had a hard time keeping hair because of all the challenges of health issues I've had of my past. And now my skin and my hair are phenomenal. So many of those things, we don't have to settle. We don't have to live that way. So it's your choice if you want to live your life as a Camaro, or you can learn how to live the life of a Ferrari. But you have to service the Ferrari so that it can run at optimal levels of performance when you want it to. It's not going to break down as long as you're maintaining and servicing it. But it takes a special mechanic and it takes exclusive tools that you don't use on the Camaro. And so you have to seek those mechanics out, and you have to seek out those tools. Blood flow restriction bands, whole body vibration, red light therapy, infrared light therapy, pulsed electromagnetic fields, nutrition. Those are the tools in understanding how to get a Ferrari on the road at high levels of performance without breaking down. They don't break down very often because it's a fine craft. It's an incredible vehicle that was designed to be that way, not mass produced. So you have to find the right people to be able to help you with hacking into your system, because it is possible. You don't have to continue to live the way that you feel if you're not happy. You're going to have a lot of doubters, a lot of naysayers, but they don't have to live with the consequences if you don't. You are the only one responsible for your decisions in your life. So I like to say my quote that I have come up with over the years that I actually have trademarked is, greatness is not measured by what we have. Greatness is experienced by what we're able to give and share of each other with our gifts. And the more that we share that, the more it comes full circle when we least expect it. And it's usually when we need it the most. I'm learning a lot about that going through this whole separation process and this new reinventing process of my life. So with the people who are out there, especially if you're in pain, growth hormone and testosterone, especially in men, starts to decline in your 30s, because we were created to have babies in our 20s, actually technically in our late teens, if you go back to traditional, the history. Most people are waiting until their 30s and even into their 40s, but the hormones are not engineered to do that. And our body was created to live with much less stress, with more of the circadian rhythm based on sunlight, which we are deficient in because we are consumed with blue light and devices and pharmaceuticals and crap in our food and no movement and go, right? So all this extra stress, what your people need to remember, emotional stress is what causes the andropause and the hormonal deficiencies on the physical side. So you don't have to have anything physically wrong with you to have a deficiency or an absolute halt in hormone production. It can be an emotional, a spiritual, or a mental stressor.
Mhm.
So, and like I said, you can't be in both systems at the same time. So you can do a lot of natural things for free at home that tap into improving vagal nerve tone and enhancing human growth hormone and testosterone. But everybody needs to look into their hormonal levels every 3 to 6 months. Because if you don't know what your chemical messengers are doing in your body, you as your own pharmacist cannot regulate your system. And we are our own pharmacist if we understand what our chemicals are. And that's your hormones. So B3 is it's an investment. Most people are like, gosh, that's so expensive. No, it is an investment on your life. It is a maintenance service call for the Ferrari. Do you want to be sidelined paying twice as much for the tow truck, for the Camaro? Or do you want to be waving at everybody as you blow by them 200 miles an hour, looking awesome because you took care of yourself and invested in yourself? So that's how I'll end that.
Yeah, it's like a gym membership, actually. I pay more for my gym membership than I do for the bands, and I actually get more out of the bands than the gym membership, right? To the point.
Absolutely.
And it's not saying that people won't benefit by having a personal trainer yet. Personal trainers actually jumping onto this expands their role, not limits it. So
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's very contagious. The results and what you feel, the rush that you feel when you take those bands off, it's like, like you're ready to go jump and like conquer the world. It's like you're a rocket taking off, like the adrenaline and like, you get all the happy hormones that you don't have to take an antidepressant for. Can you imagine a world without antidepressants and anxiety medication? B3, whole body vibration with Life Pro.
Yeah, but it's crazy how many people
easy.
can't see that other option. So where can people find you, Amber? Give us all your information.
Yeah, so I'm all about magic, MAGIK. So my website is kksmag.com. So kksmagic.com. Most all of my social media handles are at kksmagic. My business name is Kivett, Kivett, Kinetic Solutions. I'm on Facebook. And my Facebook profile, I have more people that follow me on my personal profile because if you don't pay the sponsorship and all the advertisement crap on Facebook, nobody gets access to you. So it's easier to find all my information on my personal page, which is Amber Hardin, Hardin, Kivett, Kivett. I'm in Indianapolis, and I always give my phone number out. So if you want to text me, you might not get a phone call back from me personally, but you'll get a phone call back from my gatekeeper. Her name is Chelsea. A lot of people I do call back or text back. It might take me hours or days to get back because of the schedule I run, but 317-446-7971. Actually, I have a jingle for my phone number. So we'll repeat that again. 317-446-7971.
I love it. And she sings.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far, but I love to sing. But yeah, but you can find me all those ways. And if you ever want to come in and visit, then 30 minutes from the Indianapolis airport. And if you want me to come to you, I do travel for a premium and guarantee my results 90% of the time. It just takes 1 to 3 appointments for 90% of my clients.
Boom. Amber, I had a great time talking with you today. You're amazing. And I get to interview some pretty cool peeps, and you're one of them now. So thank you for your time. I would love to have connect with you at another point too, just because of a number of things that you started to go. We could have a conversation about vagal tone and polyvagal theory and how you address that with your clients. I already
every
know
day.
There's a couple people I want to send you from here down to Indianapolis, just FYI.
Love it.
I love your work. Thanks again for your time. And if you have any questions or further insight, I'm going to post this, share it with B3 as well, but this is for you too. So once I release this, you'll know, and then you can share it with your peeps. But thanks so much again for your time. I greatly appreciate it, and pleasure to meet you personally, and love your story. So
truly an honor to be able to work with you. And like I said, there's no mistaking God's timing. And when we come together in the opportunity to make the world a better place, isn't that what our purpose is all about?
Yep.
It does. And as long as we're doing that, every day is a perfect day. So thanks for allowing my day to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making the time. I know it was a little challenging for us. So thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.
You too.